Hey everyone, so my wife, who is 32 years old, and I, who am 34 years old, have been together for 18 years but have been arguing recently about the responsibilities within our marriage. And we can't seem to agree. I work full time and my wife is a stay at home mother. We have two children. One is in school full time, and the other goes to preschool 2.5 days a week. Recently, my wife has been sending me stupid TikToks that always say, "Your wife is your partner, not your mom," and essentially boil down to men should help out around the house, help with the kids, and pick up after themselves. A sentiment I generally agree with. This usually comes with the side of, "You don't value what I do to look after the kids and plan everything, etc." Now, to be clear, I am not against helping out around the house and helping get the kids to bed, brush their teeth, and cook meals. I do help with this stuff every day. I feel like all I do is work because the second I finish work, I have kids to help with because she has had them all day. My position is that she is right when she says kids are work, and I can appreciate that after a day of being with them all day, she is probably tired of the kids. But I have also been at work all day too, and it isn't fair to expect me to be the sole parent as soon as I'm finished. Then there's the issue of housework. Our house is always a mess, which frustrates me when she complains about having to do all the unpaid labor of managing a household and looking after the kids. Because from my perspective, I go to work in a messy house, and I finish work in a messy house. I work from home, go into my office for 8 hours, only coming out for the occasional coffee and snack, which means that 90% of my mess is contained to a room only I go in. Most days while I'm at work, she isn't even home. I feel that I am holding up my end of the bargain by working full time, and then helping with housework and the kids outside of that. But she isn't holding up her end of it by looking after the house and kids while I'm at work. I could understand that she wouldn't get as much done around the house on days when our youngest is home, but on days where she is at preschool, she takes it as an opportunity to have a break and go shopping with her mom or go visit a friend. Whenever I bring this up or question how much effort she is putting in, I get, "You don't appreciate me, and I'm not your mother." I'm not saying she should be waiting on me hand and foot as my personal maid, cook, and intimacy doll. Not that we ever have intimacy, because I'm the man bringing home the bacon. And I really hope I don't come across that way in this post, as that really not what I'm saying. But I am ending the life of myself trying to do everything. Yet I'm being told I'm the problem for treating her like my mother because I'm expecting her to do her part. What can I do to help her see my side? Update. Yes, I help. Huh? So a lot of people are saying we need to sit down and try to look at things as a team. And I am totally on board for this approach. And we'll let you know how it goes. Also, to a few people dislike my framing of helping, as it's my responsibility also. I agree, I use the term helping as that's the word she uses when saying, I need to do more to help around the house. A lot of you either can't read or are refusing to believe that I actually parent my own children. I wake them up in the morning. I make them breakfast every day. I get them dressed every day. I take them to school 2-3 days a week. I know their teachers. I know all their friends and their friends' parents' names. I know their doctors. I know their allergies. None, thankfully. I bathe them, I get their PJs on, and read them the same goddamn bedtime story every night for weeks. Because they don't want any of the other books we have. They want George the Giant. I draw with them, I play games with them. I know their favorite Disney princesses and favorite superheroes. As for the household, I do laundry, I load the dishwasher, I cook my own lunches, and tidy up after myself. I iron, I fold and put away laundry. I pick up their toys and tidy their playroom. I vacuum at the weekend and take them to kids' parties. I also do all the chores that my wife won't do because I'm the man, like taking out the bins, cleaning the car, mowing the grass, fixing anything that breaks. Update 2. Days later, after the talk. So, I arranged for the in-laws to have the kids Friday night. My wife and I sat down and had a talk. A long talk. Probably one of the deepest and hardest talks we have ever had in our 18 years. I told her my side, that I felt overwhelmed and underappreciated, that I felt I was doing more than my fair share and that she wasn't. I told her that I could understand that while I may be doing plenty around the house and parenting, that I was guilty of letting her take the majority of the mental load, but that still didn't excuse her behavior. I felt I was firm but fair, and to her credit, instead of fighting back, she listened. We discussed her feelings, and she admits to not prioritizing housework and trying to make the most of her free time, and agreed that we will sit down and come up with a schedule for cleaning that we are both accountable for. She told me some issues that I wasn't aware of that her mother had been dealing with since retiring, and the passing of her father, wife's granddad, loneliness and depression, issues relating to my sister-in-law. She's a mess and a constant headache. That was why she'd been going to see her so much. Other feelings she'd been having about feeling lost in kids, not having anything for herself, and some depression related to weight gain since having our second child. She has put on 40-50 kgs and no longer feels attractive. I told her that I still think she's beautiful, but she doesn't, hence our DB. There were hurt feelings and tears from both of us. So we are taking steps to help. 1. We have both agreed to switch out mornings and evenings. I get the kids up, have breakfast, brush their teeth, get them dressed, and take them to school. She does dinner, bath, and tucks them in bed, etc. The next day we switch. This gives us both some mornings, evenings free to do what we want. 2. We are both joining the gym. I too have put on some weight and lost muscle since our second child. Hopefully this helps with her body confidence. 3. We are also arranging with the in-laws to have babysitters once a week for us to start going on regular dates again. For context, the in-laws are our only support. I'm an orphan of abuse, raised by my grandmother, who has now passed. 4. We have found a cleaning schedule where we do certain chores throughout the house every day, but pick one room to deep clean every day too, with me doing laundry, dishwasher, etc., which takes less time. Her doing the deep cleans and general tidying. 5. Most importantly, she is looking to get a part-time job so she can start helping financially, give her some income that isn't for me, and give her something to focus on outside of being a mom. As all my wages went into the joint account, I felt like I never had any money, as I didn't want to spend, and there not be enough to pay the mortgage, etc. So I never spent money and resented that she did. So when she gets a job, both incomes are going into the joint account. Then we are getting a budget together, making sure there is enough to cover direct debits, then dividing the remaining into accounts for savings and personal accounts for each of us to have our own money that we can spend how we want, guilt-free. 6. I'm going to pick up a hobby that gets me out of the house and commute to the office once a week. One thing we discussed was that I was always at home. I didn't do anything other than work and be at home. So we didn't have a lot to talk about because I didn't go anywhere. It also meant that she never got any alone time at home, away from me and the kids. And she felt like a nuisance being at home while I'm at work. We took this weekend to spend some time together as a family, took the kids to the park, went to a nature reserve for a picnic and bike rides, took the kids rock climbing followed by ice cream. It was really nice, and we both feel like a weight has been lifted. It's obviously not going to change overnight, and we need to work at it. But we have a plan, and both seem to want to put in the effort. To everyone who gave me good advice, recommended therapy, we can't afford it until she starts work, but we are looking for when she does. Commiserated with your own stories, or just had a kind word to say. Thank you so much. There were comments that made me cry, and so much insight that I hadn't considered. Thank you. To those of you who clearly didn't read my post, but instead assumed I was entitled and entirely to blame because I used the word help, or that I probably didn't know my own children's birthdays and allergies. I feel sorry for you and hope that you get the help you so sorely need. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I'm very much going to urge people reading this not to get hung up over the semantics of helping out, and instead look at what this guy is actually saying occurs in his household. The work that he does is not, I repeat, not invalidated by the fact that he used the incorrect terminology. If he's the sole caregiver for his kids in the evening, that is indeed not on. Being a stay-at-home mom is work and deserves a break. But do you know what else is work? Jobs. There very well could be a legitimate issue this guy is having, and I'm very concerned he's going to get bad advice because he calls it helping. Comment 2. You both need to stop looking at it as me versus you. Having kids is hard. Being a working parent is hard. Staying at home with the kids all day is hard. Cleaning up the house and being with your kids isn't helping. It's called being a parent. You both need to sit down and come up with a plan where you can have certain days, times where you can both get alone time without becoming resentful of each other. Now for the update. Hey everyone. Thanks for all the comments and advice on my last post. It's been a wild few days, and I've got quite the update for you all. After the talk with my wife, things seemed to be looking up. We had a plan, and we were both committed to making changes. But, as life would have it, the universe had other plans. First off, my wife started looking for part-time jobs, and she landed an interview at a local boutique. She was over the moon about it, and I was genuinely happy for her. It was a step towards something she wanted for herself, and I supported that fully. However, things got complicated when she ran into an old high school friend, Mark, who happened to be the owner of the boutique. Now, Mark and my wife had a bit of history. They dated briefly in high school before she and I got together. I knew about this, but it was so long ago that it never really crossed my mind as an issue. Mark offered her the job on the spot, and she accepted. I was proud of her, but I couldn't shake off a weird feeling about the whole situation. It didn't help that she started spending more time at the boutique than necessary, often coming home late and gushing about how great it was to work with Mark. Meanwhile, I was sticking to our plan. I started going into the office once a week, which was a nice change of pace. It gave me a sense of normalcy and a break from the constant presence at home. I also picked up cycling as my new hobby, and it felt good to get some fresh air and exercise. But the real shocker came when I decided to surprise my wife with lunch at her new job. I walked in and there she was, laughing and looking more alive than I'd seen her in months. But she was with Mark. They were a little too close for comfort, and my heart sank. I felt like a fool, standing there with a bag of her favorite food, witnessing what seemed like more than just a friendly chat. I left without them noticing and went home, feeling betrayed and confused. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but it was hard not to feel jealous and suspicious. That evening when she came home, I confronted her. The argument that ensued was one of the worst we've ever had. She accused me of not trusting her and explained that Mark was just being friendly, and that he was happily married with kids. I wanted to believe her, but the image of them together was burned into my brain. In the heat of the moment, she blurted out that she felt suffocated at home, and that working gave her a sense of freedom she hadn't felt in years. That stung. I thought we were on the same page, but apparently she still felt trapped. The next day, we both cooled off and talked it out. She apologized for not considering how it would look and promised to keep her relationship with Mark strictly professional. I apologized for not trusting her and for letting my insecurities get the best of me. We decided to keep moving forward with our plan, and things settled down for a bit. The gym was going well, and we were both feeling better about ourselves. Our date nights were something we both looked forward to, and it felt like we were reconnecting. But then, another curveball came our way. My wife's mother called, upset because she hadn't seen her as much since she started working. She felt abandoned, and my wife was torn between her new job and her mother's needs. It was a tough spot for her, and I could see the stress building up again. We are still figuring out how to balance everything, but we're trying. It's not easy, and there are still moments of tension, but we're working through it together. My daughter, I gave up, finds me and we bond. But she's pregnant and hiding a secret affair with her adoptive dad. So I vow to stand by her as we face the wrath of her other parents. I got pregnant at 17 during my senior year of high school and hid my pregnancy until I was 6 months pregnant. The only person I told was the father, who was my boyfriend at the time. My parents eventually found out, and I ultimately decided to place her up for adoption. She was adopted at birth, and I hadn't seen her until she was 15 years old. Things were rough post-birth. I was dealing with all the postpartum symptoms without the actual baby in my presence, and started college 3 weeks later, like I didn't just have a whole baby. I want to make a quick note about her adoptive parents because it's important. I never properly met them before giving birth, but the second they did come to the hospital, I knew that it was a mistake for them to be the adoptive parents, but there was literally nothing I could do about it. And I was right about them because she does not speak to them and even moved out when she was 16. I did make a comment to her about what I felt when I handed them to her, and that sparked a deep emotional response from her. Ever since then, things only went downhill, which is what she has now told me. She found me over 3 years ago. We were really close, and then she became more distant as time went by, to the point where she no longer talked to me when the new year hit. I didn't know what I did. I even wrote her a few messages, to which I've gotten no response. I haven't seen her since November, and I found out she was pregnant earlier this month through my ex's bio father's socials because he posted her gender reveal. I finally got some form of communication from her, which were a few letters by mail. There were 3 letters in total, and a few pictures. In the letters, she told me she was pregnant. The reason she pulled away was because of the resentment she harbors towards her upbringing, which has not gone away, but she's currently working on it. She acknowledges that although she understands that I was very young, she still resents the fact that she was placed with her adoptive parents, despite me admitting that I knew it was not a good decision. The letters were very raw and honest, and it honestly was tough to read, but I did finish all 3 and looked at all the pictures. I guess I'm posting here because I have no one else to speak to about this, and I want to know how to respond. If I'm coming off as unemotional and distant, please know that it's the complete opposite. I've had some time to think over this and sort of process what I've read. I'm going to send a letter back because there were obvious reasons she decided not to text me, call me about this. But what do I say in what I send back? What do I include and what do I leave out? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I think far too many young moms are heavily pushed into adoption, as if it's all roses and butterflies, only to find out that losing your baby is the emotional equivalent to having all your limbs cut off. I don't know anyone that didn't regret it. I'm sure some people may have had a lovely experience. But a huge percentage of moms go through hell. I see so many family influencers on Instagram posting photos of their adopted babies making millions of dollars off them. And I genuinely can't imagine how the birth moms must feel. I would maybe write a letter back, explaining all the pain and anguish you felt, and how you always have and always will love her. Let her know that you regretted the decision too. You are both victims here, and we're both taken advantage of by the system. Your pain must have been immense. Explain that to her. She might take time to respond, but at least she'll know your feelings. Comment 2. I think you acknowledge that you received the letters. You acknowledge her hurt and resentment, and you apologize that she did not have the childhood you had hoped for her. Then offer to talk to her about it with a therapist together. Keep in mind, too, that she may not be the most reliable narrator. Some kids who are adopted really struggle with that and have complex relationships with the adults in their lives. She clearly needs some mental health support. Kind of crazy how she's pregnant at 18, and people are celebrating that fact with a gender reveal. Did she get pregnant on purpose? How does an 18-year-old with no parental support keep a roof over her head, go to school, and raise a child? Yikes on bikes. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. They really helped me sort through my feelings. So here's what's happened since then. After I got those letters from my daughter, I spent days trying to figure out what to say back. I wanted to address her feelings without making things worse. I finally sent a letter, pouring my heart out and apologizing for the pain she's been through. I told her I'd always be here for her no matter what. A week went by with no word from her. Then, out of the blue, she showed up at my door. She was crying and said she needed to talk. We spent hours on the couch, going through everything. She told me about her life with her adoptive parents, how they never really understood her, and how she felt like an outsider in her own home. I learned that she had been struggling with her identity for years. She felt like she didn't belong anywhere. That's why she reached out to me in the first place. But as we got closer, the reality of our connection in the past started to overwhelm her. She said she needed space to figure things out on her own. She also told me about her pregnancy. She's scared, feeling the same fears I had when I was her age. Her boyfriend, the father of her baby, is supportive, but they're both so young. It's like history repeating itself. Then she dropped a bombshell. She said she's been in touch with her biological father, my ex, for a while now. They've been talking and trying to build a relationship. That's how he knew about the pregnancy before I did. I was stunned. I hadn't spoken to him since we were teenagers. After we broke up, he moved away and we lost contact. I didn't even know he was back in town. The next day, my ex showed up at my house. He wanted to talk about our daughter and how we could support her together. It was awkward, to say the least. We sat in my kitchen, making small talk, tiptoeing around the past. Then he said something that made my heart stop. He told me he never wanted to give up our baby for adoption. He said he wanted to keep her, but his parents convinced him it was for the best since we were so young. I was floored. Back then, he told me he agreed with the decision. I had no idea he felt pressured. We both made choices based on what we thought was best at the time, but it turns out we didn't really understand each other's feelings. Our daughter has been staying with me for the past few days. We've been talking a lot, trying to rebuild our relationship. She's still processing everything, and so am I. It's been a roller coaster of emotions for all of us. But here's the twist. Yesterday, my daughter asked me to go with her to a prenatal appointment. I was thrilled. It felt like a step in the right direction. We were in the waiting room when she got a text and suddenly went pale. She showed me her phone. It was a message from her adoptive parents. They found out about the pregnancy and they were furious. They accused her of making the same mistakes I did and said some really hurtful things. She was shaking, so I took her hand and told her we'd face this together. But then she looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "There's more." She confessed that she had been seeing her adoptive father secretly after she moved out. He had been helping her financially, and they had developed a relationship that went beyond just talking. She felt guilty and confused, and she didn't know how to stop it. I was shocked. I didn't know what to say. The man who had adopted her, who was supposed to protect and care for her, had taken advantage of her vulnerability. My heart broke for her. I promised her we would figure this out and that she wasn't alone. My sister accuses my husband of abuse. But when she lands in the hospital with a broken arm, she admits her mistakes and we try to mend fences. But trust is hard to rebuild. Firstly, I apologize for the long post. Secondly, thanks to anyone who reads through it. I appreciate all the advice I can get. So basically, my husband and I have been married for 2 years. My sister, for God knows why, has developed an obsession with trying to prove that my husband abuses me. First, she started in on emotional abuse. She claimed that the fact he has opinions on my outfits, I asked them, makes him controlling and manipulative. I said, "Girl, no, I'm asking." And also, even if I had an outfit and he didn't like it, I'd probably still wear it if I wanted. I wear tiny clothes all the time when we go out. He likes it. At the very least, doesn't mind. She found the outfit thing out when I sent him a pic before going out with her. Well, once I got her off that, it was onto the financial abuse. He doesn't want her to work. Not true. He literally told me I don't have to work if I don't want to. She found that out by reading through my texts. I was having a hard day at work, pediatric oncology nurse, and texted him. He responded by saying, "I'm sorry, can I do anything? And you don't have to that job anymore if you don't want to." Once I convinced her and the rest of my family, she told, that no, my husband wasn't financially harassing me, it turned to intimacy. She would freaking interrogate me about our intimacy life. I made the dire mistake of telling her I had a UTI, and she jumped to, "He makes you have intimacy too much." Not true. That died down after a few weeks. But now she's interested in telling everyone I'm beaten by my husband. Like, Jesus flipping Christ. And it all stemmed from the fact she was at our house one day with my other sister and brother. Me and my husband went upstairs because I was overwhelmed with her intervention, totally unrelated to my husband. And of course, as fate has it, this is the day I fall up the stairs in a crying state. I thought I broke my wrist, just sprained it, and I'm dramatic LOL. And I had a few bad bruises on my forearms from where I caught the banister. OFC this turned into, her husband shoved her down the stairs. Like I love my sister, but God, I can't handle this. My husband finally snapped at her, causing a bad argument between him and my other sister. My brother took our side. Like she's literally splitting our family, and over what? What in the frick do I do? There's simply no way a lot of people have dealt with this. But if you have had anything similar, what did you do? Anyone else have a crazy butt sister? I don't want to cut my sister off, but there's not seeming to be any other options. I'm open to hearing if any of you have them. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Boundaries. It might sound harsh, but your family is your responsibility and your husband should not have to put up with this. If she mentions him in a negative way, you leave. If she wants a relationship with you, she has to respect your spouse. Period. It might be helpful to think of yourself as the mommy's boy we see on Reddit all the time, with your sister being the mother-in-law from hell. Stop putting him through that. You're trying to be a good sister, but in reality, you're not being a good wife. Boundaries. You are in charge of yourself. You will not allow anyone to disrespect your husband. If they do, you leave. If they continue, no contact. Your sister can decide if she prefers a relationship with you or not. Comment 2. I'm honestly baffled by her behavior, because even if you were in a hurtful relationship, her actions are not how you get a loved one out of that kind of situation. I agree with the other posters. Sit her down again and set some firm boundaries. I would also add that if she continues, you will be forced to cut her out of your life and will be seeking legal advice. OP, not only are her lies disturbing and causing harm within your family, but they could have real-world consequences. What happens to your husband if she starts blasting this to the world? Now for the update. Hey everyone, I'm back with an update on the situation with my sister and my husband. Thanks for sticking with me and all the advice you've given. It's been a tense few days. After my last post, things escalated quickly. My sister, let's call her Anna, showed up at our house unannounced. She had this chaotic look in her eyes, like she was on a mission. She started accusing my husband, Mike, of all sorts of things right in our living room. I was shocked, and Mike was furious. They got into a heated argument, and I tried to calm things down, but it was no use. Anna brought up the past, stuff I hadn't thought about in years. She reminded me of how protective she'd been when we were kids. She was always the one to stand up for me in school when others picked on me. I guess she thought she was doing the same thing now, but it was so misplaced. Mike had never been anything but kind and supportive. In the middle of their shouting match, Anna pulled out her phone and showed us a picture. It was a photo of me with a bruise on my arm from when I fell up the stairs. She claimed she had proof now. Mike lost it. He grabbed her phone and threw it against the wall. It shattered into pieces. I'd never seen him so angry. I was scared, not of him, but of what was happening to us. The next day, I found out Anna had been talking to my old friends, digging up dirt from my past. She talked to my ex, who I hadn't seen in years, and he fed her lies about our relationship. He told her Mike was just like him, that I had a type. It was ridiculous. My ex was nothing like Mike. He was the reason I had trust issues before I met Mike, but Anna was convinced she was saving me. I confronted Anna about it. I told her she was out of line, that she was ruining my marriage. She just cried and said she was trying to protect me. It was a mess. I felt like I was in the middle of some twisted soap opera. Mike and I had a long talk that night. He was hurt, not just by the accusations, but by the fact that I hadn't shut them down more forcefully. I realized he was right. I had been so focused on trying to keep the peace with Anna that I hadn't stood up for him the way I should have. The following day, I decided to take action. I went to see Anna and laid it all out. I told her that if she couldn't trust my judgment, then maybe she shouldn't be in my life. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to say to her. She was my sister, but I couldn't let her tear apart my marriage. Anna left in tears, and I felt like the worst person in the world. But when I got home, Mike was waiting for me with open arms. We decided to take a break from my family for a while to focus on us. It was a relief in a way, to not have to deal with the constant drama. But then, 2 days later, Anna was in a car accident. It wasn't serious, but she was in the hospital with a broken arm. The guilt hit me like a ton of bricks. I rushed to the hospital, and when I saw her lying there, all the anger melted away. She was still my sister, no matter what. We talked for hours. She apologized for everything, said she'd been going to therapy and realized she had issues she needed to work on. She admitted she'd been projecting her own fears onto me and Mike. I forgave her, but I knew things couldn't go back to how they were. Mike came to the hospital too, and he and Anna had a heart-to-heart. It was awkward, but it was a start. We all agreed to try to move forward, but it was clear that things were going to be different, so here we are, 3 days later. Anna is recovering, and she's going to keep going to therapy. Mike and I are taking things one day at a time, trying to rebuild the trust that was broken. It's not going to be easy, but we're committed to each other. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.